Hey everyone, my name is John, and for those of you who don't know, I'm the dynamic system lead. Today I'll be going through some tips, best practices for SolidWorks. So before we start with SolidWorks, I'll go through GradCAD with y'all, which is the place that we use to share the SolidWorks files. So I recommend everyone download the GradCAD Workbench app because that makes syncing the files easier. So as you could see, this is where our car is, and you'll download the whole all the parts into your local folders. And we split it into the electrical, the dynamics, and the body components. So you could see there's a naming convention for all the parts. And so yeah, please follow them. And so once you made a part and you're ready to upload it, you could click here and you see this is the part that I made some changes to. If before you upload it, look through the files and make sure that it is the actual file that you want to upload and not someone else's file, because especially with assemblies, sometimes it messes around with different files. And if you have one that you didn't intend to change, you go click here and select it, click here, undo my changes on this arrow, right? If it's what you wanted, so you just click upload selected, and it should be uploading now. Yeah, and then this site is to download the files that other people have uploaded. So there are no new files now, but before you start, always just download it to make sure that no one you have the most updated files. And also when you're editing files, make sure that no one else is working. So just communicate with your team. Right. So now let's go to SolidWorks. Start a new part. So before we start making the parts, you want to make sure that you have the correct units for your documents. So the machine shop and most tools, most of the things we could buy are in standard units. So we want to work mostly on that. To change the units, you go to tools, go to options, and then document properties and units. So make sure it's in inch, pound, seconds. And here you could change the number of decimals you want to show on the file as well. So we got that. So, and then before you start drawing your part, you want to plan ahead, right? Things to keep in mind is that you have tools to help you, like the mirroring tool. That's very important. It saves a lot of time. And yeah, you should think of which way you could use it. You get 3 planes and you have the origin. Always try and keep the origin in the center of the part, because when you do assemblies, that's how you rotate. And also it allows you to use the planes easily when you don't have to create new reference planes. So let's see. We have, let's say we're going to make a part like this, right? It's symmetrical, it's square, so we'll probably use the boss. So go over to new part and we sketch it on the top plane. So we only need to do, since it's symmetrical, we only need to do half of it, right? And then this line will be the line of symmetry. So I'm going to make it for construction only. And then there will be a circle somewhere here. And then before I mirror it, I'm going to get all my dimensions right. So let's say this is 5 inches, and then this is maybe 2 inches. right? So you could use the mirror entities, select all of this, and mirror it about there, right? So why would you want to do that, right? Because let's say if you are going to change the size of this circle, for example, you see how both sides change as well. So you have less things to edit. If you want to change the distance of this circle, wait, there we go. So you could move it around and it will still be symmetrical. So especially when you're like designing parts, a lot of times there will be changes made and you want the changes to be as easy as possible. So think about the symmetry. And then when you extrude it, I like to use mid plane because as you extrude it, the mid plane will keep the origin in the center of your part. Whereas if you use blind, it's gonna be on one side of it, right? So try and keep it on mid plane. There you go. Have your part. Another thing you want to keep in mind is to have as little features as possible. So on the left side of the screen, there's your feature tree. And every action that you do, you will create another feature. And the less features you have, the better it is because it's easier to load the part. So let's say you have this part and now you found out that you don't need one of the holes, right? Do not ever fill it up. So what I'm talking about, it's like, let's say if you do this, right? Sketch it and then you convert this circle and you extrude it. So this fills up the hole, right? It does the job, but what you have is an extra feature here. And as you get more and more features, it gets more difficult for you to keep track of what you changed. So do not do that, delete it, go back to here, edit your old sketches, and then just delete this, for example. Let's see. There we go. And then just rebuild it. Oh, survive this sketch. Yep. So yeah, so you still have only one feature. So the less features you have, the better. Yeah, another thing that it's good to have is a global variable. So let's say I'm doing this sketch, and for example, I have this circle, and so you could make a variable x equals to 1 inch, let's say. Oh, okay, so let's say you make it 1, and then if you type in x, you can create a new global variable called x that's equal to 1. So let's say this is 1.5. You could do you could equal 1.5 times x, right? And that will give you 1.5. Let's say, so what this is useful for, so all your global variables will show up on the feature tree here. Let me build this as under the equations tab, right? So x equals 1, that's our global variable. You could right click it, manage equations, and you could change the value of x. So let's say x is 2 now, right? See, then you get the parts that were extended. This did not go out as I expected. So let's see. Okay, let's say this is X. Equals to X. Okay. There we go. Yeah. Oh, SolidWorks doesn't like that when, so let me do equal to 2 times X. All right, let me put the circle somewhere here. Yeah, so now when you change the value of X, all the dimensions will change with it. Oh, that's not working. Okay. Oh. Yeah, so another thing you should keep in mind is defining where the points are. See, I didn't do that. Like, I didn't do that correctly. If you have, let's see. So make sure your relations are, yeah. So make sure your relations are well defined so you won't run into issues like what you just saw. Yeah, another tip is to add fillets and the lastings. So add fillets all the way at the end. So let's say you have this part and you're done, then you start adding fillets. Right, you could click either the edge or you could select the whole face and it does this for you. So it's a lot easier to do it at the end instead of like doing it midway, because sometimes you have to, every time you have to make changes, it's gonna come in the way because it changes the circles sizes and everything. It removes some of the edges, so always do it last. And if you are going to make any changes to this, delete the fillet first, make your changes, and then add the fillets again. And lastly, before you're done with the part, make sure you add the material that it should be made. That's a good practice to have, because then someone else who looks at it will know what it's supposed to be made of. Most of us, we either work on this car, we either do like 10 or 1020 steel. And for aluminum, we're mostly using 6061 T6 right here, right? So make sure you add like a material, specify a material. So I'm going to do that. Apply. All right, so you should say here what material it is. Right, so let's say if we're going to make a part that is round. So remove everything. Variable. Oh, it's not like that. So I need to delete all of these equations. Okay, right. So now I have a blank slate. I'm gonna draw. Let's say I'm gonna do a part that's something like this, right? I could do a, I could draw a circle on the top and then extrude it down, and then extrude another cylinder down and extrude another cylinder down. But that would mean I have 3 features. So if you could, for something like this, you could use the revolve cart. So let's see, we sketch on the top plane and then center line. And you could draw, just draw it. I'm just gonna go through this quick. You could, in like when you're making your part, you'll probably be like filling in all the dimensions. So there we go, draw the part. And then revolve it. So our axis of simulate, axis of revolution would be here. So this way, right? So see, we only have one feature instead of making 3 features. So yeah, always before you start, just take like 5 minutes and think of how you want to draw the parts and how you want to add on all the extra features. These parts I've shown are like really simple, but as it gets more complicated, just keep applying the same thought process behind it. And try for the exercises on the SolidWorks textbook, try and do it in as little steps as possible, in as little features as possible. Right. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for all your time. And bye.